You ever have a morning so meticulously planned that nothing could possibly derail it? And then, in the space of a single heartbeat, your entire world does a somersault? That was me, Matthew Bailey. A guy whose whole life ran on gears and precision. The kind of CEO who signs deals over breakfast and juggles more numbers than a Vegas casino, thinking he's untouchable. Yeah, that happened. And then, on this gray Tuesday, as I stepped out the polished glass doors of my building, already scrolling through my phone, a flicker of movement caught my eye near the shadows, something my brain filed away as does not belong. But I kept walking until a tiny voice cut through the city noise, pleading, "Please help my sister." You know what I mean? That kind of sentence sticks to your ribs. There, crouched on the freezing concrete, were two little girls in matching blue dresses, no older than 6. Blonde hair tangled, faces pale as paper, one collapsed and still, the other kneeling beside her, tears leaving clean streaks down her cheeks. I've closed million-dollar mergers without blinking. But seeing that broke something open in me, so I dropped to my knees, barely feeling the cold bite of the ground, checking for a pulse. Faint, thank God, but still there. I scooped the limp girl into my arms, lighter than she had any right to be, turned to the sobbing sister, Ella, I'd soon learn, and said, "We're going now." I didn't wait for an ambulance. Didn't call security, didn't hesitate, just bolted through the streets, little Ella's footsteps slapping behind me all the way to the hospital lobby. You ever burst through sliding glass doors? Suit wrinkled, cradling a child you've never met, and bark, "Emergency," so loud the whole place freezes? That was me. Nurses swarmed, a gurney appeared. And June, the one in my arms, was whisked away in a blur of scrubs and urgency. I stood there, suddenly useless, hands shaking for the first time since my father's funeral. I didn't even know their names. When a nurse finally found June stitched inside the dress, the other girl whispered, "That's my sister. I'm Ella." She told us their mom worked nights at the same hospital, which meant those girls had been alone, and fate, cruel or kind, you tell me, had dumped them outside my office. For once, a meeting could wait. I called my assistant, canceled everything. I wasn't leaving until I knew June was okay. Ella clung to me in the waiting room, her whole body shaking, and I realized, in that hard, echoing silence, I'd never felt so helpless, so unqualified. Hours crawled by, daylight faded, and I found myself praying to a God I barely believed in. The ER emptied. But I couldn't leave that chair, not with Ella's tiny hand gripping my sleeve. When her mother, Lauren, finally burst in, dark hair wild, panic burning in her eyes, she dropped to her knees, clutching Ella, tears running down her face. "She fell?" Ella whispered. I introduced myself, but there's no etiquette for this, no script. Lauren explained she worked nights, left the twins sleeping. Never thought something like this would happen, her voice breaking with guilt and exhaustion. A nurse led us all back to the ICU, where June lay still and silent, small under a web of wires. Lauren pressed her lips to her daughter's hand, rocking gently, whispering prayers. I stood in the corner, rage and sorrow twisted together, wanting to fix something I didn't understand. The doctors spoke in probabilities, maybe a seizure, maybe something rarer, not sure yet. Lauren just stared, numb. So I took over, asked questions, demanded details, the way I always did in boardrooms. But here it felt like I was shouting into a storm. That night, none of us left. I stayed in the corner, Ella curled against me on the bench, Lauren weeping beside the bed. When the hospital grew quiet, a nurse offered me a pillow. I waved it off. Sleep felt like a betrayal. I watched the monitors, listened to every breath June took, felt time stretch out and twist. You know that feeling, when everything slows down, and every second drips with the weight of what could go wrong. Dawn came gray and uncertain. June's condition was unchanged. Lauren looked at me with disbelief when she saw I hadn't gone home. "You didn't leave?" she rasped. "Wasn't gonna," I said. It wasn't charity, wasn't obligation. I just couldn't walk away. Maybe it was because no one had ever stayed for me when I was young. Maybe it was something else entirely. Later, when the doctor said June needed long-term care, Lauren whispered, "I can't afford this. Insurance won't cover it all." I knew the answer, but offering money felt crude, like shoving my privilege in her face. Still, I said it gently. "Let me handle the bills." All of them. She stiffened, tried to argue, but she was too tired, and June needed help now. That settled it. We found a rhythm. Me showing up every day, sometimes with snacks or books for Ella, sometimes just with a steady hand. To the nurses, I stopped being a stranger. To Ella, I became something like family. She'd show me her drawings, curl up beside me without a word. For Lauren, trust came slow. She let me help but never asked for it. Always apologizing, always proud. As days blurred together, the ICU became a world of its own. Machines, whispered conversations, hope and dread circling like birds overhead. I turned my CEO obsession toward June's recovery, learning medical terms, grilling doctors, controlling what little I could. In quiet moments, I sat beside June, told her stories about boardrooms and botched salmon lunches, about how Ella's drawings now always included a little stick figure labeled June. Lauren would stand in the doorway, listening, her eyes softening by degrees. One afternoon, June's fingers twitched under my palm. At first I thought I'd imagined it, but then her lips moved, searching for words, or maybe just a breath. Nurses swooped in. Lauren nearly collapsed from relief. It's small, the doctor said, but it's a good sign. Hope, that fickle animal, crept back into the room. The next days brought tiny miracles. June opening her eyes, tracking Ella's voice, squeezing a finger. Ella begged me to read her bedtime stories. Lauren started sitting closer, conversations turning from necessity to trust. "Why are you really doing this?" she asked me one night in the hospital garden, city lights flickering behind her. I told her the truth, because when I saw those girls, something in me broke. I was tired of living for myself. Everything I'd ever built meant nothing compared to this. By the time June finally spoke, first Ella's name, then, soft as breath, Mama, the whole room felt it. Not a Hollywood ending, not all at once, but a slow, earned resurrection. Lauren sobbed, clutching her girls. I stepped into the hallway, shaking, undone by gratitude. I made sure Lauren's job was safe, arranged therapy, paid bills quietly, no conditions, no credit. Soon, June was strong enough to go home, laughter fluttering back, the apartment filled with light. That night, we ate chicken soup and crackers around Lauren's tiny table, like a real family. The thing is, I didn't rescue them. They rescued me. They taught me that love isn't owed or earned, it's given. And the only thing that matters is showing up, day after day. No matter how afraid you are. That's the kind of ending that sticks. Not because everything is fixed, but because everyone keeps choosing each other, one uncertain, beautiful day at a time. So here's my question for you. What would you have done in my shoes? When is it okay to step into someone else's storm, and when do you step back? Do you believe there's such a thing as a self-made person, or do we all need each other more than we admit? I'd love to hear your thoughts about justice, about family, about the quiet ways we save each other, sometimes without ever meaning to.